Hello student, very good morning to all of you. How are you? I hope you all are happy, healthy and fine at home. Do you remember what were we discussing yesterday? I think we were discussing about the orthogonal strategy in oligosaccharide synthesis. How orthogonal strategy will be utilized in oligosaccharide synthesis. What are the starting material used to get desired oligosaccharide? And as we know that oligosaccharide further divided into three types: one disaccharide, trisaccharide and tetrasaccharide. These are the classes of oligosaccharide, that is a sugar unit. And how the orthogonal strategy utilize in oligosaccharide synthesis. We have discussed, we have studied that point systematically in our previous lecture. So today what we are going to discuss, let's look at here on the blackboard. We are discussing point number C according to the syllabus: synthesis of disaccharide, trisaccharide, polysaccharides. Under this particular heading, we are discussing this point right now, which is protecting groups, effects on reactivity, glycosylation, stereoselectivity and coupling efficiency. With respect to this point, we are going to discuss and protecting groups. As we know that common protecting group used in carbohydrate chemistry are benzyl group, and if you see the introduction method, how the installation of that functional group or masking of that functional group, stereoselective reaction. And as we know that stereoselective reaction means where it will react, how it will react, that is known as a stereoselectivity. How it will react means the formation of the product, the resulting compound, which resulting compound is predominantly obtained, that is depend upon the reaction condition and the reagent used. And chemoselectively means which functional group will react. And here number of functional group, for example in case of the carbohydrate chemistry, there are secondary alcohol and the primary alcohol alcoholic OH groups are present, and therefore to get the desired product it is necessary to protect the particular specific functional group, and for glycosylation, for glycosylic linkage or bond formation, how one can keep the free hydroxyl group at which position in another sugar unit, and in how we can keep the anomeric protecting group by using suitably. We can deprotect it, and once it is a free, so we can carry out the reaction. The process is known as glycosylation, and now whenever this glycosylation takes place, which product will be prominent or which is reactive over the another one, that kind of the comparative study is given here, and their coupling efficiency. Let's see. In general, protecting groups are seen as an expedient performing the uninteresting task of masking functionality that would otherwise interfere with carefully planned strategy. A protecting group or protecting group strategy is usually chosen on the basis of its compatibility in protection, deprotection, and liability to the transformations. Selectivity in protection and sequence in deprotection when multiple protecting groups are used. Ultimately, the same criteria apply in oligosaccharide assembly, and where the protecting group pattern is principally dictated by the target structure. Even within these constraints, there are, however, options which can mean the difference between success and failure, efficiency and tedium. Before investigating the roles various protecting groups can play, it is pertinent to analyze briefly the glycosidic mechanism, because this is central to oligosaccharide assembly processes. There have been many detailed studies of the processes that occur during a glycosylation, but much of the evidence used to substantiate proposed interglycosyl coupling mechanism is anecdotal or circumstantial. Monitoring actual glycosylation reactions is complex and often not very illuminating given number of factors involved and the instability of the intermediates. The mechanism presented here is not intended to be definitive but serve well as a working model. Glycosidic mechanism. The first rule is that glycosylation do not under most reaction conditions proceed through a free oxonium ion in an SN1 manner. And as we know that SN1 means substitution nucleophilic unimolecular reaction, it proceeds through intermediate ion pair. The solvent plays an important role in carrying out the SN1 reaction. Solvent used to break the bond between carbon and the leaving group, and the formation of the carbocation is solvated by the solvent. Depending upon the nature of the solvent, maybe as a protic polar solvent or the aprotic polar solvent, it solvates the carbocation, stabilized through solvation process. That process is known as a solvation. And when the nucleophile attack, it depending upon the nature of the carbocation, whether it is more stable or the less stable, depending upon the number of factors involved in it, and so that most of the reaction proceed through ion pair, intimate ion pairs, and so that there is a possibility of getting the product 50-50% retention and the inversion. But in this particular case, in a carbohydrate chemistry, the group generally acquires at axial position due to the thermodynamic stability. And the first rule is that glycosylation do not under most reaction condition proceed through a free oxonium ion in an SN1 manner. Jenks has estimated the lifetime of a glyosyl oxonium ion in water to be approximately 10⁻⁻12 seconds, a time to start to enable solvent equilibration, and it therefore seems unlikely that in typical low polarity glycosylation solvent the ion pairs can be separated sufficiently to generate the free glycosyl oxonium ion as an intermediate. Hence, glycosylation can be considered as proceeding through an exploited transition state in which the incident hexacarbenium moiety is stabilized electrostatically by both entering and leaving groups, as in C alpha B and C beta alpha, taken from Leibniz mechanism, and which is represented in a figure 1. Let's see that figure over here. So now I am representing this diagram, this figure over here. At axial position, this group is over here. Now here is the R at an equilibrium. you may get this one O, this here R we can write as it is, then this get protected. Yes, positive charge comes on that oxygen atom because there is a exceed of bond, so you can call it as a E alpha. Then once again at an equilibrium we can represent the structure like this, double bond over here, positive charge comes on that oxygen atom, there is a possibility of this O, yes, and hydrogen atom over here which is known as D alpha, and these D alpha further goes in equilibrium, we will get the structure like this. Here positive charge, then X may be negative charge, we can write like this, and here another structure we can write yes, hydrogen atom. This structure you can call it as a C beta alpha. Then this at an equilibrium get converted into this type of the structure. We can show here X group we can represent like this, which is known as beta, B raised to beta. Positive charge on that oxygen atom we can represent as it is. Then we can show another structure in an equilibrium. So here the oxygen atom we can show over here, then this is a boat form like this. So there is a lone pair, generally we can represent like this. Here X at axial position, here you can write R as it is. Then here also the R and R remains as it is. Here also R is the one of the group which remains as it is. Then this will be represented in another way. This is known as A beta dash, A beta dash, and this will be represented like this over here. We can show oxygen in here. Now here you can show R, here also as a X at beta position, so we can write A raised to beta, this one A raised to beta, and then we can show here at an equilibrium you can show like this, and this, not this one. Here you can show this group we can represent like this. So here it comes oxygen atom, and then here is a positive charge, here is a R, then we can represent here X, here also as a X, that is a minus charge over here. This is a C structure we can represent. That C structure can be converted into another structure, that another structure will be represented here like this. There is oxygen atom and positive charge comes on it. There you can say X minus over here, and this is a beta raised to alpha, and these are remains as it is. That or again once again go into an equilibrium arrow, it gives this type of the compound like this. Here is the oxygen atom lone pair, we can represent like this. Here is a this lone pair comes over here and that get removed. You can call it as a A raised to alpha. Then this one, and this we can represent another way round here. Positive charge over here, and we can show O, H, S, and here maybe as a X minus charge. This you can call it as a C alpha beta, this one that goes in the other way round. Here we can show another structure over here like this. Like this we can show here is a positive charge, and then there will be O, H and S structure, and this we can show, we can represent another structure which is like this O. Similarly here you can show O, H, S positive charge over there, and this you can call it as a E raised to beta. And finally we can show, we can represent the structure like this O. Here will be R and O and the yes, it remains as it is. So this is a figure number 1, Lamieux glycosidic mechanism. This is a figure number 1. The name of this figure is a Lamieux glycosidic mechanism. Glycosidic mechanism. This is represented in a scheme, figure number 1. Lamieux mechanism and Ishikawa and Fletcher was put forward to explain the high alpha selectivity observed on alcoholysis of anomeric bromides with an ether type protecting group on C2. The first step involves dissociation of the glycosyl bromide to tight ion pairs, and this process is promoted by donation from the oxygen lone pair into the carbon oxygen antibonding orbital sigma star, requiring the two orbitals to be approximately aligned. For the alpha halide with the required orbital naturally in an anti-periplanar arrangement, this interaction only results in flattening of the pyran ring as the oxygen takes on more sp2 character. For the beta halide, however, the sugar must recognize to a boat conformation a raised to b to place the orbitals anti-periplanar. The resulting ion pair are then intercepted by the acceptor alcohol SOH with inversion in the rate limiting steps leading to the protonated glycosides, and the product from the alpha halide pathway proceed through a boat like intermediate e raised to b, whereas the beta halide leads to a lower energy chair like intermediate e raised to alpha, and these smaller activation barriers coupled with higher ground state energy of the beta halide more than compensate the energy penalty incurred in aligning the oxygen lone pair with the antibonding orbital, and hence the beta bromide is more reactive than the alpha bromide. Remember this word. Electronic and torsional effect. The first step of any glycosylation involves dissociation into ion pairs, a process which results in reorganization of the glycoside and the development of a positive charge on the ring oxygen. Clearly, any factor that influence this process will have profound consequences on the outcome of a glycosylation. Ray Ebert is a scientist named Ray Ebert ETAL noticed that the removal of the oxygen at C2 of glycoside greatly increased the rate at which the methyl glycoside were hydrolyzed, and which is represented in a scheme number 1, and that scheme number 1 now let me show over here. So how we can represent this, let me show that one also. So this is the glycoside I am representing over here, OMe. All other group which are lying at equatorial position, when it is treated with the reagent number 1, what is going to happen, that hydrolyze to get this type of the compound which is OH. OH is now we cannot assign it, so say all other group they are remains as it is, and which is represented like this. So this is the scheme number 1 which is shown here, and the reagent and conditions, reagents and conditions generally SCl which is aqueous in nature. This is a I is nothing but as a hydrochloric acid. Look at here, glycoside is converted into as a sugar unit, but here whether that hydroxy group either alpha side or beta side we cannot decide it here. So I think with this we have completed this point. In the next lecture we will learn about intramolecular glycosylation reactions in detail. So I think with this, let us stop today here. Remaining we will see in the next lecture. Thank you. Have a nice day.